The opinions are those of the hosts and guests and not necessarily those of the station or its management.
All right, folks, welcome to the first Monday of April. I can't believe that already. Here we are in April 4th, first Monday. You know what that means? It, excuse me, it means it's time for Politically Speaking with State Senator Mike Moore, who's in studio. Hey, Senator.
Hey, how you doing, Joe?
Good. Let me grab a little cup of water here.
Happy April.
Apologies there. So yes, the first Monday of every month. Thank you. Happy April. I know, well, tax season, right? Everybody associates April with April 15th, 16th for us in New England, right? Because 2 weeks from today will be the Boston Marathon. It will be running, and I haven't heard anything. Right, it's all back to normal, right? I mean, the heavy security and all that, but it's just a normal, back to everything. No masks, none of that.
As far as I know, everything's back to the way it used to be, the good old days.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. So 2 weeks from today, I'm assuming I will be right here, unless I decide to go to the thing. I grew up in Natick, so we were on the marathon route, and it was such a big thing, right? We all
out there with water.
absolutely.
All right.
And then I did the Red Cross tent. I was part of that. Then for a few years, I was the deputy civil defense director in Natick. So I was always working the medical tent, in the water tent, and as a younger kid, I thought we'd go to my cousins and I'd be like, when's your marathon? I thought everybody had a marathon in the community you lived in. I didn't realize the Boston Marathon was like a worldwide thing. When you're 7 or 8, you don't get that, right? So anyway, yeah, we lived on it, and it was always a big to-do for us because the entire town turned out, downtown Natick, and always enjoyed that. It was always a fun time. Anyway, 2 weeks from today will be the Boston Marathon, but on the first Monday of every month, what we like to do is the senator joins us to talk politics and what's going on up on Beacon Hill and the latest as far as what they're dealing with. This is your opportunity to hear it straight before you get it in the news, to ask questions. You can reach the show for discussion with the senator at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. We're live streaming on the TuneIn app, of course, as well as terrestrial radio. And in this case, I am streaming the show from the studio on my Facebook and Twitter account, so you can check that out at Joe Mangi, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show, as well as the YouTube channel, LinkedIn, and even Twitch TV at Joe M Show. Again, 508-871-7000 to reach the show. And what do we have going on here? I mean, a lot of things are going on. You know, this is one of the most interesting times in 30 some odd years of being in the radio business. We've got what's going on, of course, in Europe right now, Ukraine, Russia. The horrific actions of the Russian soldiers are unbelievable. But here we're dealing with incredible inflation, gas prices, and a lot of us are looking to the state to see how the states are going to handle each situation. And some of it is people thinking gas tax could be a relief. We've still got, I think, some COVID money. So why don't you run down the health of the state right now? Your mini little state of the state.
My little state of the state. Well, the state of the state, the economy is job-wise.
Do we have the right mic on? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Is it coming through okay? Do we want to switch? No, don't touch those. All right. Now you're going to push that one out of the way. This is...
Okay, so there we go.
Yeah, this is a lot. We're going to have to adjust his view on that. All right, folks, now that we got some logistics straightened away here, again, let's take it from the top, Senator. How are we doing?
How we doing?
Or what are we doing?
Well, as far as the economy goes, unemployment and employment rates, we're doing well. As far as if it wasn't for the inflation, I'm going to qualify this. If it wasn't for the inflation, with people working and unemployment, everything is going well. But we have and tax revenues coming in right now have been doing well. We're on pace to have a surplus at the end of the year, which should be comparable to last year. Which last year I think we ended up about 1.4, 1.5 billion. So we're on pace for that, barring any sort of economic meltdown. Excess.
All right. Revenue above our budgeted.
Budget above the estimated amounts.
Yeah,
so
$1 billion here and $1 billion there. That adds up.
Yeah, oh, it does.
Yeah.
So it's going well there. We've got the federal money that has been coming in. We've got the first allocation of the opera money that came in. We dispersed about 2.5 billion last November, December, along with some of the surplus money that we had, which brought it up to about $4 billion. Was sent back to the administration, disperse it in different line items or funding areas that they determined were necessary. And we've got another 2.5 billion from that original 5.5 billion that we had that we still haven't. We were initially expected to do something before the end of the legislative formal sessions this year, but July 31st. But our understanding is that it's been very slow in getting dispersed.
Okay.
So we may see that pushed off until later in the year, early next year.
All right, let's put some things in perspective for listeners who might not even understand, because we're throwing out billion here and a billion there, right? And so what is the yearly budget for Massachusetts typically? What is it? What was it for this past year? What is it going to be this year? Do we know?
Oh, we don't know this year.
All right. So last year, what was our budget?
Last year it was over $40 billion.
All right. So it's about 40 billion plus
and we had to
run the state.
Correct.
Okay.
And with that, we actually increased the rainy day fund, which is the stabilization fund, to over $4 billion. And part of the justification for getting it to that level is the bond rating companies had, since the Great Recession of 2008 and 2009, there was concerns that at that point we had one of the highest in the state. In the country. We were over $2 billion. That didn't last that long.
Right.
So from that experience, they came back and said that they would like to see they'd like to see states get up to over 10%. So we pretty much reached that benchmark with the last budget. So we got $4 billion in a rainy day. So that should help us there as far as our bond rating goes.
So about 10%.
10%
of the operating budget is in the rainy day fund.
Right. And and again, that's being driven by the bond rating companies, because it, as everyone knows, that the lower our that the better bond rating, the better it helps us with interest on money that's borrowed.
Exactly. And we're not paying a lot. Well, we would pay if our bond rating's low, folks, we're paying a lot of interest. Right. It's just like at home, right? If your credit rating sucks, you're borrowing and paying 21, 22% or 29% for a car loan. If you have a 790, 800 FICO score, you're paying 3.4%. Same principle happening here, just on a much larger scale.
All
right, very good.
So we ended that last fiscal year with that. What we have recently done, which goes into, as you were just saying, talking about inflation and the gas tax, we recently just did a supplemental budget that the governor filed.
Okay.
And we just recently did that. And some of what was included in that was $100 million for new winter road recovery assistance for cities and towns to repair potholes in roads and bridges, one down by obviously the weather. $20 million in the Victim Crime Act. And this $20 million is really resulting from the federal government. They changed the VAWA Act, which now is requiring us to fill the void for 3 years. So basically, we're going to need $60 million. So you're probably going to see us in the budget that's coming up in the spring, allocate another $40 million to fill that gap, and then we will get reimbursed by the federal government at the end of a 3-year period.
Say again what's that for?
That's the victims of violence.
Okay.
Victims of the VAWA. Victims of, I'm forgetting what the Women's Act. Violence against women.
And is that how this works? A lot of times we spend the money or allocate the money or budget the money, and we get that reimbursed to the government, the federal government, once they see that we have that program and it meets.
It depends on the program. It varies. It's not all that way. Some they give us directly, and sometimes they don't.
Okay.
So then we had another $10 million for emergency aid to the elderly, disabled, and children. Then we had another $8.4 million that went to the Department of Children and Families for foster family rates. Another $8 million for early intervention, staff stabilization. So basically, what that is, we've had a lot of this we've seen, and the private sector has this problem too, but we have a lot of human service providers that they can't, because of the rate of pay, it's very low, that they're having problems retaining staff. So we're trying to find a way to help them.
I think that's going to be a problem you're going to find across the board.
Yes.
But we're going to take a pause here at 14 and a half minutes after the hour. We'll pick up where you came back. Plus, we'll go to the phones on the other side of the break. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Mark is up next when we come back. Back on the other side with Senator Mike Moore on this first Monday of the month, Politically Speaking. This Find a Forever Home for Teddy's Friends is brought to you by Boxtrop Middlesex Mattress Health. Today's candidate is Jojo, a 6-year-old large mixed retriever in Labrador. This gentleman has wooed staff and volunteers with his suave looks and charming personality. Between his handsome face, goofy and mature personality, and medium energy, everyone who meets him falls in love. Jojo wants you to know how accomplished he is, house-trained, crate-trained, and all about keeping his space clean. Squeaky toys or balls, Jojo loves them all. He loves all toys. He loves to toss them around with you or even by himself. Doesn't mind playing solo for a while when you're busy. Jojo enjoys walking with his dog friends. We're not sure how he feels about cats. If you think Jojo is your new best friend, click Teddy Boo Pup's Facebook page, pictures, and link to the Bay Path Animal Rescue League in Hopkinton. Find a Forever Home is brought to you by Boxtrop Middlesex Mattress Outlet. Click boxtropmiddlesex.com on Facebook at Boxtrop Middlesex.
Cheryl Ann Gengel co-founded the Be Like Brit Foundation, founded to honor the memory of her daughter, Brittany Gengel, who died tragically in the 2010 earthquake in Haiti, along with approximately 300,000 others. To honor her life and her commitment to those less fortunate, the Be Like Brit Foundation works towards fulfilling their vision to raise the next generation of leaders in Haiti. Please take a moment to visit belikebrit.org to learn more about our mission and to see what your help has accomplished and will do in the future. Make a difference. Be like Brit.
Hey folks, Joe Mangiacotti here, and I have recently purged and refreshed with new furniture and, most importantly, a new bed. We spend about a third of our life on our mattresses, and it's so vital we have the right one, and we don't break the bank to do that. I first bought a mattress from the big store the brothers used to own, and a power base that moved the head and feet, and then I met John, and I checked out his showroom at 50 Main Street in Ashland and online at boxtropmiddlesex.com, and ended up with a better mattress, a power base that also heats and massages, all for less than half of what I was going to spend at the other place. Boxtrop is a discount mattress store, and John specializes in clearance and closeouts, and he buys directly from the manufacturer with a low overhead and just family employees, passing the savings on to you, and you can see it reflected in the price every day. Click boxtropmiddlesex.com or call John on his cell. This is his cell number, 508-579-9303. That's 508-579-9303. And you can find John on Facebook at Boxtrop Middlesex. John loves referrals, and this is the best referral I've given so far this year. Dropboxmiddlesex.com.
We know why you're awake. Your child is about to get their driver's license. Levante's Auto School offers 1-week driving programs to help make sure your child stays safe and focused behind the wheel.
877 Drive Ed. Who's Ed?
That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Learn to drive safely and efficiently. Visit one of our 5 locations throughout Massachusetts. Click Levante'sAutoSchool.com.
Levante's Auto School shows you how to learn the rules and keep your cool. 877 Drive Ed.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
You're listening to the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Powerhouse Station WCRN and our affiliates. To talk to Joe, dial 508-871-7000, and you can text Joe on air in real time at 617-297-8388, or email textjoeontheradio@gmail.com. And now back to the most interesting man in the world. His tears cure cancer. Too bad he never cries. Common sense talk for the common sense citizen.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second segment of the Monday edition of Politically Speaking with State Senator Michael Moore. We did this the first Monday of the month going forward as of last month. It used to be the first Saturday. Now it's the first Monday of the month, this being April 4th already. It's crazy. 2022 is moving.
So before we get the mark,
yes,
let me just quickly
finish out
All
that.
right. So we have $5 million for state election costs. So this is going to help reimburse cities and towns for that. We've got another $1.7 million for state park investments, another $609,000 for additional staffing to implement the next generation roadmap for the Massachusetts climate policy legislation, then $500,000 to expand the capacity for the Commission on the Status of Women. So this bill has gone to the House now. They had a different version, so it's in the conference committee. And one thing that we can talk about, and maybe this will help Mark in that discussion, there was an amendment to suspend the gas tax as part of this.
Yeah,
that
that's conversation that
would have suspended the gas tax until September 1st. I was one of 11 that voted for the suspension.
Mhm.
So obviously it didn't pass, but so that's pretty much what we did as far as the supplemental budget. There's other legislation I have that we have to talk about, but
Right.
that's
Because
just
there's
dealing with
a
that.
substantial amount of both COVID money has come in and in infrastructure money, right? The
Yes.
$12 billion that just came
Well, the
in,
12 billion we haven't
Haven't got it
discussed.
yet.
We haven't.
or
It's
you
still
got
the,
it,
the administration still working
Yeah.
to determine the directions that money
Right.
can be spent.
but that's $12 billion. We can do a lot to our roads, bridges,
Road, bridges, environmental
waterways.
infrastructure,
Yeah.
waterways,
Okay.
you
So
know,
there's a
other services,
lot there
other
that can be
services
done.
for municipal services.
Yeah.
So,
So if somebody
one
has-
of the reasons right now we're having a delay,
Yeah.
and this is similar to what we just said a few minutes ago. There's, and I even spoke to at one event I was with the governor at that we mentioned it. I said I had a fear that we're not going to be able to do a lot of these projects in a timely manner because of the lack of workers.
Yeah.
Totally agreed. And one of the reasons is every state's getting federal money.
Exactly.
So it's when
It's
we're
not like guys that say, you know, I'm going to go down to Massachusetts. They're doing a lot of stuff. Nothing's
Yeah.
happening here in Vermont and New Hampshire or Maine.
it's happening. There
Every
too.
state has gotten this whatever their portion of this infrastructure bill money come in. So now everybody gets to get caught up on these projects,
Right.
which there aren't enough people out there to fill all those jobs,
And just
or
like the,
even willing to work.
and just like the private sector is having the problem
Sure.
with, and you know, in these projects where it's infrastructure, it's going to private contractors.
Yeah.
So that's the,
Yeah, and right. Private contractors who have to go out and hire these people, and they just can't get people to work or to work at some of the rate they've been paying, right? Because we
Right.
see wages go not as fast as inflation, but wages are going up.
Yep.
508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's go to Mark in Worcester, who's been waiting patiently. Thank you, Mark. You're on with State Senator Mike Moore and myself, of course.
Good afternoon, Senator.
Good afternoon.
What's
How
on your
much
mind?
money did if you know, did the Worcester DPW get from the stimulus package in order to fix some of the atrocious road conditions within the city of Worcester? Some of them look like the old Chisholm Trail.
Mark, I have to go back and look to see how much they specifically got. I don't know what.
So you don't know.
Not. I have to go back and look at my records. Every city in
Yeah.
town would have gotten money, the Chapter 90 money, and they would have, and with additional money, they would have received that also. Would be based on a formula. So
Yeah,
I would.
well, the bottom line is, could you try to see to it that the DPW and Worcester get some of that money?
Oh, they did get
Not
some.
only-
Like I
not
just,
only, huh?
they did get some. I just don't have the exact amount for you.
You don't know.
But I'll
Okay.
tell you what, his office will get me that figure.
I can
They're
get that.
very
We
good
can
about that.
We can get
Yeah.
that to Joe, and he can at either one of his shows.
Because I gotta tell you, Senator, if you don't think that the roads are bad in some of the, I'm talking the side streets right off the main drag. Drive down Highland Street and then just take a left or a right on either one of the roads that connect to Highland Street, and you'll find out for yourself. I hope you have your regulation NFL mouth guard in, because you could get some of your teeth knocked out on some of these roads. They're atrocious.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will. I'm making a note, and I will get that to Joe.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Always appreciate the call. So DPW, like everyone else, they got money. You just off the top of your head, you don't
Yeah,
know
I
the
don't.
figure. So your office can give me that figure. But since moving out of Worcester, I don't drive there as much. But I can tell you, prior to moving out, there were some pretty bad roads, including some of the ones up near where I lived.
So
And,
Worcester's kind of
They're always working on something.
well, which is good.
Yeah.
No, that's what the money is intended
Oh,
for,
yeah.
working on the infrastructure.
Yeah.
But Worcester's got an issue too, also, where surprisingly, and I never knew this until I got elected, Worcester has an issue where they have a lot of roads that are still private. It's like if you go down
Yes.
to Grafton Street in Worcester,
Yep.
all those like roads to the left,
Yep.
between that and it's was it not Massasoit? It's Sunderland Road.
Yep.
Those small roads there, a lot of those are private roads, and they're full of potholes. And
Well, I had this problem because the condo that I had in Worcester, we were a private road. And the road was built to build the condo building. So when it wasn't plowed, and you're like, hey, to the town, and the town's like, well, that's not a town road, a city road, that's a private road.
which means the homeowners
That
homeowners
we
then
would
have
to
pay.
do it, but then they would come down because you have that. There was a high school. I forget the name of the special high school that mainly for the up near
The recovery
Holy
school.
Name.
Oh no, that's That's Holy Name. Yeah.
There's Holy Name, but there's a city school there that I guess a lot of the students there have dropped out of school, went back in or whatever. So they're a little older. They're finishing their high school at 18, 19 years old,
Okay.
20 years old. Anyway, they would always plow down to the back entrance of the school, which to do that, go the other 80 feet and push the snow into the woods. So that got it. But fixing it wasn't the plowing the problem. There were potholes that my car could sit in.
Yeah.
Like the entire pothole was big enough that all 4 tires could be in that pothole.
Well, I can tell you again, over the years, I've learned more about this, but when I used to go door knocking, every 2 years, you go out there and you knock on doors and you go to roads. And there was some areas that you'd go to that you'd see the streets, and a good majority of the time, and I'm not talking the main roads, Mark, I'm talking some really side roads that, like we just talking off of Grafton Street, some of those roads you look into and it turns out some of them are privately owned.
Right.
And it's expensive. You can understand the homeowner. It's an expensive proposition to have to look at. Everyone owns the middle of the street.
Yeah.
So then you've got to get everyone on that street to agree to pay for it. And if you don't get everyone, and again, it's understandable because if the expense is paid, you may have someone who's elderly or may have some other sort of financial.
They can't take an $1,800 bill. Well, if that's the portion.
That I think that $1,800 would be is on the low side.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, who knows how big is the road? What do you got to do to the road if you've neglected it for years?
Yeah.
Right? It costs more, like anything else. If you neglect your house and you go to sell it, you're either going to pay maintenance over 20 years to keep your house up to par, or you're going to sell it for less because you didn't do it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Same thing. You got to fix that road, man. If you haven't kept it up, now you got to fill it and
but there
grade
are
it.
also some
Powerhouse, we have just the tiniest little horseshoe driveway that goes around like a little hedge. They quoted us over $2,000 to pave it.
Yeah.
And it's literally a tiny little horseshoe driveway.
Yeah.
And again, now there are some people who actually prefer to have the road that way because
nobody's barreling down the road.
Exactly. It controls the speed. People have to go slow. So there are, and this, so that's the other problem too. You could have half the street or 3/4 that want it done. Then you may have 2 or 3 that don't want it done.
Yeah.
So that's the problem with, and Worcester, and again, I don't know every city and town in the state, but I know this has been a topic in the city of Worcester for many, many years.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. This is Politically Speaking with State Senator Mike Moore. So the gas tax did not pass.
The temporary suspension?
Temporary, rather.
It would have suspended the gas tax until September 1st.
What was the vote on it?
It was 29-11. And honestly, I was actually surprised it got that high. The people who voted to suspend the gas tax, I was happily surprised to see it break double digits.
Yeah.
I really thought when we were voting that you may see 7 or 8 of us. I didn't think that I'd be joined by that.
How much does the gas tax bring into the Commonwealth coffers?
I have to get that number for you, Joe. I didn't bring that.
But it's got to be millions.
Oh yeah, it's billions of dollars. So, and this is part of the problem with it. I shouldn't say part of the problem. This is where the debate lies. Before the House voted on it, this amendment similar to this, before we got the supplemental budget, they voted it down. It came over to us. We had Ways and Means and the Senate leadership saying that even the governor was advocating for us not to pass it, that we were going to have, as we talked about earlier, the bond rating, that the bond rating companies were going to look negatively upon that and possibly affect our bond rating, because that money, a lot of that money is spent, and this money that comes in is to go over to cover the money that's already been spent. So, but my argument to that was that we have that $4 billion.
Yeah.
So why couldn't we dedicate some of that $4 billion to cover the cost of the suspension temporarily?
Right.
And then where we have a surplus expected this year, use that money to backfill the money in the stabilization.
Because we do got to take a break here at the bottom of the hour, but between the gas prices and the food prices, inflation in general, the average family is hurting here.
And again, I know we got to take a break, but that was, we heard some people, I didn't hear anyone in the Senate, but more in the House, that there was some public comments made, it's a gimmick.
Yeah.
But similar to what you're saying, it's not a gimmick. When you're making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and you've got a family, or even more money than that, and you've got a family, and you've got to pay more for utilities.
Yeah. Okay. An extra $100, $150 a month is tough. Hey, we got a break here. Sorry. We'll be back with State Senator Mike Moore with Politically Speaking on the other side.
Ben Thomas with an AP News Minute. President Biden is calling for a war crimes trial against Russian President Vladimir Putin following reports of atrocities by Russian forces in Bucha, one of the towns around Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, recently retaken by Ukrainian forces.
We saw what happened in Bucha. This warrants him. He is a war criminal. But we have to gather the information.
Images of battered bodies laying in the street or hastily dug graves have led to calls for tougher sanctions, namely a cutoff of fuel imports from Russia. Germany has expelled 40 Russian diplomats, while Lithuania threw out the Russian ambassador. In other news, Medicare says millions of enrollees will finally have access to free over-the-counter COVID-19 tests at drugstores. The announcement comes amid worries that the latest variant, BA2, will spark another rise in U.S. cases. On Wall Street, big tech and communications stocks are making solid gains, leading the broader market higher in afternoon trading. I'm Ben Tallman.
So is this the line for Dragon's Maze?
Wow, the line is really long.
We'll meet up later.
How long will you wait?
As long as it takes.
So you guys are only going to do this one ride all day?
It won't be that long, probably.
Mom, can you get us food?
Wait, are they cutting?
Caleb, food is so far away.
Should I say something?
Daddy, pick me up. Mom!
Hey, there's a line here.
Daddy, swing me.
That's like 20 people.
Oh my God.
One person holds the line for 20 people? This is bull.
Don't go there. Go on a real vacation. Go RVing. Learn more at GoRVing.com.
DQ presents. Picture this. You stand before the awe-inspiring new signature Stackburger menu at DQ and your mouth wonders, where have you been all my life? That's 5 taste bud tempting cheeseburgers with 100% real seasoned beef. You peek at the loaded A1 Stackburger with 2 premium sauces. Then the flamethrower Stackburger with tongue-tingling jalapeno bacon. Then you realize moments like these are exactly why we have the DQ signature Stackburger menu. DQ. Happy tastes good. Get it delivered at DQ.com.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear. Here's the latest Boston 25 weather on radio 830 WCRN. We're going to see some increasing sunshine this afternoon, along with highs in the mid to upper 50s. These temperatures just a tiny bit above average. We've basically got a repeat forecast tomorrow, maybe gaining a couple degrees before we get into a soggy stretch starting on Wednesday. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear. You can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
Another marvelous Monday in New England. I'm Ted A. Here are some historic facts that happened on April 4th. In 1789, the United States Congress begins regular session. In 1818, Congress decides on the U.S. flag boasting 13 red and white stripes and 20 stars. In 1841, John Tyler becomes the 10th president of the United States after the death of President William Henry Harrison. In 1949, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, aka NATO, is signed in Washington, D.C. In 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. is shot dead in Memphis, Tennessee. In 1973, the World Trade Center, the tallest building in the world at that time, at 110 stories, opens in New York. The WCRN News is brought to you by John the Roofer, a leader in the roofing and home improvements business for more than 70 years. Call 866-906-ROOF or go to the internet and see johnTheRoofer.com.
You're listening to the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Powerhouse Station WCRN and our affiliates. To talk to Joe, dial 508-871-7000, and you can text Joe on air in real time at 617-297-8388 or email textjoeontheradio@gmail.com. And now back to the most interesting man in the world. He brings a knife to a gunfight just to make the odds even. Common sense talk for the common sense citizen.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Monday edition of the show, Politically Speaking, with State Senator Mike Moore. The first Monday of every month we do this. Senator comes in, takes your calls, answers your question, tells us what's going up on Beacon Hill. I was going to say Bacon Hill. Beacon Hill. You can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. We're on TuneIn app, by the way, so you can stream us anywhere. And we're also streaming the show on my Facebook and Twitter page. So if you want to listen that way, I see the numbers are clicking up. We got a big audience today online watching us in studio. It's a good thing you dress so well, because I didn't know we were going to have such a
Well, I was virtual
audience.
I was virtual all morning, so now
Yeah. Now, what's going on with that? You guys are still doing a lot of meetings virtually, or are you holding meetings in the Capitol?
Both. We're
So
having
it's a hybrid.
so yeah, we're doing hybrid right now, and we're going to continue the hybrid until the end of this legislative session, and then after that, I'm assuming that I'm one of them. Again, I'm only one of 40. I'm assuming that January 1st we'll go back to the full in session and we'll delete the hybrid.
And do you think that the state legislature, Senate and House, will go back to what pre-COVID type of operation? Like everybody's going to work, everybody's in the Capitol, everybody's in their office.
Yes, I think you may see a variation of this. Now, one of the problems we've had with hearings now every bill that's filed has to have a hearing. So there's 6,000 bills filed. You may see a hybrid model there where you have in-person hearings and maybe accessible through virtual also. So that, like my staff right now, we have the staff divided up where they'll come in 1 or 2 days a week, and then we have them working from home other days a week. And it's easy to monitor the work that they're doing. So we know that they're actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. But I think you may see in January for the next legislative session a work model or something like that continues a hybrid model. But as far as get in session, you'll see us. I'm pretty certain you'll see us go back to in person. Voting for the.
Well, I don't think for you it's not that big of a deal, but I would think for those reps out in Agawam in Northampton, they would love the option of a virtual meeting here and there, right? Because that's a hike coming in the Beacon Hill. If you're on your border and you get 3 hours to get into Boston,
that's
a big thing.
That's a big thing.
And they get the mileage, right? You get mileage and per diem.
Well, no, the per diem's gone.
Okay,
they did away with that when that whole vote went down. And again, excuse me, because of that whole COVID 6 years ago, when the big pay raises went into effect.
Right. So I didn't realize but mileage, traveling mileage, you get your mileage, right?
No, what they did is they took the stipend, they merged it. They took the per diem, which went based on where you lived, and that was merged into another expense that legislators would get. But other than that, it's nothing per mileage.
Okay, all right. So are they still, if you have to travel 3 hours just to get to work, is there compensation somehow?
Yes, in the aspect that was whatever people were getting at that point was merged into this other stipend.
All right. So it actually, the money then goes towards their pay amount, which then helps in retirement. Right? Because per diem didn't get calculated into your retirement. But if your salary goes up instead of per diem, then your retirement.
And also, Joe, I would have to check on that, because what they also do for legislators is, and I shouldn't say what they do for us. We obviously have parking in the building.
Yeah.
So the parking is free, but they assess us a fee for that we have to that does not get calculated into your retirement. So similar to like if you were paying for parking somewhere that work related, and you were then filing on your taxes, we don't get deducted on our taxes, and it does not. Legislators.
So you don't pay it, but they're counting it as somebody's.
It's counting as an income coming into
it. Okay, interesting. All right, I'd like to get into all that sometime for people, because that's all interesting how they do all that. But
it even gets confusing for us at sometimes when you hear, like when I first heard that, okay, they're going to give you parking.
Yeah.
But then they're establishing a monetary value for it,
you
which you were going to get
like
taxed
who's
on.
deciding all this, and where are they in the world? Because you talk to some of these bureaucrats, and they don't think that your money is your money anyway, and then you know what I'm saying. Then you think about, and then I always wondered, do these reps and senators way out in the western part of the state, do some of them get a hotel room in Boston or stay in town a few nights? Do they get that reimbursed?
You don't get reimbursed, but if you do have the option of using your campaign account to pay for that. So
you're allowed to use your campaign funds to stay.
Because you can use your campaign and actually Office of Campaign Finance. They have what's called a live monitoring of this, So any expenses that come in, they're actually monitored. We changed this 2 years ago or 3 years ago, where before it was only when we filed that they would see what the money, the transactions.
Now they're watching real time.
Now they're watching real time.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because they're watching a card or they're watching you.
They're
pull it
watching
out?
both.
Oh, wow. Your big brother.
Yeah.
Big time. All right, 508-871-7000 if you'd like to speak with State Senator Mike Moore as we continue with Politically Speaking. Ken in Bolton's been waiting patiently. Let's go to Ken. Ken, you're on with State Senator Moore and myself.
Good afternoon, Joe and State Senator Moore.
Good afternoon.
I have just a quick add-on, and it's a history story that Ted was just saying about 5 minutes ago. President Tyler died in 1841. Back then, the inauguration for the president was in March, and he showed up to the inauguration without a coat.
Yeah.
And a month later, died of pneumonia.
Yeah. Yeah, he was sick for the entire time he was president, right?
Yeah.
He was bedridden.
He got sick right after the inauguration and didn't recover.
Yeah. I mean, what was he trying to like prove that he was tough or something? Like what, showing up without a coat? What was the
obviously foolish?
Yeah.
It is funny. I went to an event. I shouldn't say a little. That wasn't funny what happened there, but I went to an event recently at the Worcester. They had a memorial to the COVID.
Yeah.
People of families and people who have lost someone. And actually, everyone else had these overcoats on. Well, we all know there's Under Armour today.
Yeah.
So people were commenting, "Oh, where's your overcoat? Where's your overcoat?" Because I just had the suit on.
Yeah.
But I had 3 layers of clothes on.
Yeah.
And I guess that today it's a little bit more convenient
Yeah.
that you can, you have clothes that a little bit more protect you, I guess, from the elements.
Yeah, that stuff's good. I'm a big believer in layering. Layering's a great thing, right? You put more on, take more off, and there's only so many clothes you want people to take off, or in my case anyway. So, Ken, what was the you were calling about gas tax suspension?
The gas tax suspension. I just had a simple question for the senator. You may not know, but if he thinks about it, I would imagine if you look at a map and consider the westernmost point of Route 128.
Yep.
And you just drew a north-south line, I'm guessing virtually all of the no votes were to the east, and virtually all of the yes votes were to the west.
There were some in Central Mass that
Well, that's to the west.
Right, but I'm saying that, so there were. Well, I consider all right. So there were some. Central Mass was kind of split. There were some from Western Mass that actually voted yes to not.
That's what I'm saying.
No, I mean, I'm sorry. No, there were some from Central Mass. Western Mass that voted against the suspension.
Yeah, that'd be the Amherst people.
Probably
Very,
Amherst.
very
And
tough.
what we found, and I think someone, if you go back and look at it, more of the urban districts where, like the city of Wood, like I voted for the suspension. Senator Chandler voted against the suspension. Senator Goby, who will be covering the city of Worcester in the next, hopefully in the next legislative session, she voted along the lines that I did. And you're right, Eastern Mass, it really was a strong no vote on it.
Because they just don't drive as much.
Right. Yeah. So you are, I'm trying to remember everyone who voted. I can tell you, Eric, well, this is where Senator Lesser voted against it. So he's in Western Mass. You had Senator Hines in Western Mass. He voted against it. Senator Vellis from Western Mass, he voted for the suspension. Senator Goby voted for the suspension. I voted for the suspension. I think Senator Cronin from the North Worcester County. I'm not sure. He could have which way he went. Again, Senator Chandler voted against the suspension. Senator Eldridge voted against the suspension. And I think that's
what was the argument?
Then Senator Fatman voted for the Senator Fatman was the one who filed the amendment. He voted obviously to suspend the gas tax.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. Ken, thank you for the call. Appreciate it. Good question. I guess what is the argument against it when we have literally billions of dollars from federal money that's come in? And
because that's the thing. That's again, from what we were being told, that federal money could not be used to supplant that
taxes. Got it.
So,
all right,
that was part of our justification. We were told one that you couldn't do it with the federal money, and the other one was the concern with the bond rating.
Yeah.
And then there was another that we were told that the administration, the governor's office, would vote against it. but or of course we veto it. But then again, now I saw last week there was an article that came out in Western Mass that showed when Connecticut passed it, that the governor then came out with a statement saying, well, maybe it's something we should look at now.
All right. We'll continue with this, but we do have to take a quick break here. And we'll return on the other side for the fourth and final segment of Politically Speaking with State Senator Mike Moore. Stick with us here on AM 830 WCRN. Hi, I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and you probably recognize me from the radio, or at least my voice, maybe from this station you're listening to now. And if you don't know, over my 30-plus years on the air, I've been best known for the real estate, mortgage, and financial talk that I've done. And what you may not know is that I haven't just talked the talk, but I've walked the walk. You see, I've been a licensed real estate salesperson here in the Commonwealth since 1984. And my very first venture into talk radio in 1986 was actually a real estate talk show. So I just wanted to remind you, or maybe inform you, that if you're considering selling or purchasing a property or looking to invest in income-producing property, consider having a conversation. You won't just be tapping the 3+ decades of my experience with marketing, purchasing, investing, and even being a landlord, but that of the countless experts and professionals that I've had the privilege of interviewing, working with, and learning from. Think of the vast network and contacts you'd have access to. So before making a move, make a call. You can click joerealtors.com, find me on Facebook at Joe Realtors, or email me at cameoproperty@gmail.com, or just call direct to my cell, 508-969-1088. That's 508-969-1088. And listen to Heidi Sizza and myself on Handling Change. Hey folks, Joe Mangiacotti here, and I have recently purged and refreshed with new furniture and, most importantly, a new bed. We spend about a third of our life on our mattresses, and it's so vital we have the right one, and we don't break the bank to do that. I first bought a mattress from the big store the brothers used to own, and a power base that moved the head and feet, and then I met John, and I checked out his showroom at 50 Main Street in Ashland and online at boxdropmiddlesex.com, and ended up with a better mattress, a power base that also heats and massages, all for less than half of what I was going to spend at the other place. Boxdrop is a discount mattress store, and John specializes in clearance and closeouts, and he buys directly from the manufacturer with a low overhead and just family employees, passing the savings on to you, and you can see it reflected in the price every day. Click boxdropmiddlesex.com or call John on his cell. This is his cell number, 508-579-9303. That's 508-579-9303. And you can find John on Facebook at Boxdrop Middlesex. John loves referrals, and this is the best referral I've given so far this year. Dropboxmiddlesex.com.
We know why you're awake. Your child is about to get their driver's license. Levante's Auto School offers 1-week driving programs to help make sure your child stays safe and focused behind the wheel.
877 drive.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Learn to drive safely and efficiently. Visit one of our 5 locations throughout Massachusetts. Click Levante'sAutoSchool.com.
Levante's Auto School shows you how to learn the rules and keep your cool. 877 drive.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
You're listening to the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Powerhouse Station WCRN and our affiliates. To talk to Joe, dial 508-871-7000, and you can text Joe on air in real time at 617-297-8388, or email text Joe on the radio at gmail.com. And now back to the most interesting man in the world. Sharks have a week dedicated to him. Common sense talk for the common sense citizen.
All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment of the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show, actually politically speaking, with State Senator Mike Moore in studio, taking your calls at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000.
Any callers?
No, we're clear right now.
All right, so what I got for you is, we also did last Thursday, which the House had done, is an act relative to temporary registration plates. Massachusetts was one of the few states that didn't have this. So that other states, if you bought a car in another state, they'd give you a temporary plate. You could drive the car home, or you could use it until you get the registration. So we actually passed that in the Senate when we did the another bill last Thursday. So that's gone off. I think it's the exact same language as the House. So I think that's gone off to the governor's desk.
A few months ago, I bought a new car, and I did it through one of the online things that they drive the car to your on the car carrier thing, right?
Yep.
And so that was a big thing because we didn't have at the time, we didn't have these temporary plates. So they registered it. So I had to pay then, to register it and put a plate on it and all that before it came so that it was ready to drive and all that. And there were some hiccups with that. There were a lot of little problems with that because this company, national company, I'm sure you've all seen the commercials with them. Most states have those temporary plates, and they just they're paper. They literally put it in and it's temp, and you get whatever 30 days or something. So what does this mean now if you buy a car and you don't have the plate with you to switch it, right? Because you could do 7 days.
You'll be able to get a temporary plate.
And what are the rules around it? How long is the plate good for?
That's going to have to be developed by the registry. The registry will have to come with some regulations.
All right. So you guys just said, let's have a temporary plate. The registry's going to figure out the details to it.
Yep.
All right.
And that's why if you look at a lot of legislation we passed, this is where you don't want us to get into the minutia of that because, as you say, legislation can take years to pass.
Right.
So you want to have us do the foundation and then leave some of the day-to-day.
Okay, and then you turn it to the agency.
Right, and they do the regulations. And then this way, if there's a need for a change, they can make the change on it relatively quicker. All they have to do to change regulations have a couple.
Who's our registrar now?
Oh, geez, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, I was wondering. So,
so we also did a healthcare and municipal a mental health bill. We did that. We also did what was called the the Soldiers Home. We did legislation dealing with the Soldiers Home.
Let's talk about that for a second.
And that's sitting in the conference committee. So that means that we passed, the House did a version, we did a version. There's some differences, and now it's sitting in the conference committee working out the details. So basically what we did in the Senate version, it requires a new full-time ombudsman who would receive and investigate and assist in resolving complaints related to health, well-being, and rights of veterans' homes, residents, and staff. We also, in this Department of Public Health, will inspect the homes. All inspection reports will be publicly available, excluding identifying information of the patients. So we have HIPAA issues there.
No, there was a lot of issues, right, with the nurses crossing where they worked, right? That was one of the problems.
Well, also the claim that information wasn't going up.
Right. Okay.
So there was there was really no chain of command.
Okay.
So this is what I think I'll say people in the military and other, I guess,
police, fire, any structure.
They know there's a chain of command.
Yeah.
There's also, let's see, there were additional amendments.
Well, the infection control specialist,
the
emergency preparedness specialist.
Yep.
And then it seems like our positions that should have existed in some form already, but apparently didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then the bill directs the Secretary of Veteran Services. This is the Massachusetts Secretary of Veteran Services to conduct an outreach program on the benefits and application process for the Veterans Home, which will require annual reports from the statewide and regional Veterans Home Advisory Councils. The Senate bill would also remove existing procedural hurdles, which will make it harder to donate operating supplies, clothing, medical equipment, personal hygiene products, and holiday gifts to veterans. There was an issue that we had there with them not being able to receive donations. Then there was also,
wait a minute, procedural hurdles which make it harder.
Which make it
All
harder.
right, so you're making it easier
Yes.
so that people can donate these things
Yes.
and gifts. Why would that be such a hard thing to do?
I don't know what the regulations were.
Yeah.
This is in response to the oversight hearings that were done, where we found out there was
a problem.
There were internal restrictions on the accepting of donations. So then there's also healthcare. Operated Veterans Home would be required to accept Medicare and Medicaid payments. The bill would also provide mental health resources to employees of state-operated Veterans Homes who worked during the pandemic and create a commission to rename the Veterans Home in Chelsea and Holyoke after specific Massachusetts veterans. So those are
who haven't been selected yet.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And then finally, the bill would establish March 21st as Veterans Homes Remembrance Day to honor the veterans who lost their lives due to the tragic COVID-19 outbreak at the Veterans Home. So now that bill is gone to a conference committee because the Senate had the Senate House version were a little different.
What is the fallout from that? Are there civil
this
suits?
is the fallout.
No, I mean, are there civil suits from the
there are.
families that lost their
Yes, as far as I know, there were no criminal, but I think there are some civil suits.
Right.
And I think there's some people well, I don't think I know.
And that comes out of whose money?
Civil suits would be the individuals.
To work there.
right, who work there. Well,
They
either
can't
work
bring
there
suit against the
or
home itself or the state?
the civil suits would be by the individual families, members, or it could be if there's complaints against the people that work, if there's issues from the people who work there,
Yeah.
it could be from them too. Now, I recall, I do think there are some people in the administration who have been named in some of the civil suits.
All right. So the thing is, so the family that is bringing a civil suit for negligent loss of life, say to their father, who was in the veterans home, you're saying that they're naming some of the administration, maybe some of the staff at the place.
I don't know. Well, look, what I've always been taught, and maybe when you sue
everybody. Absolutely. And so so if they are victorious in the suit, does that mean that it comes out of the state money, has to pay the judgment?
It could, but there are limitations also, unless the government entities, and this goes from municipalities to state, there's laws that cover them as far as identification.
Yeah.
Now, unless that identification doesn't apply, if they can show that there's malice, negligence, or if they don't follow training or the proper procedures. So you have to show certain things. If you can show those things, then the identification can be
set aside.
Yeah.
And given the fact that all these changes were made, it almost says, there was some negligence and some problems there. So there's some of these changes I think would be very good for the lawyers who are looking to chase this down.
And there's one other thing also, responding to the Russian invasion. The supplemental budget did include some funding for individuals from Ukraine.
Here in the Commonwealth.
Yeah. Supplemental budget also allocates $10 million for the Office of Immigrants and Refugees to support resettlement of international evacuees pertaining to Ukrainian evacuees.
Yeah. Given that we're at 1 million people who have illegally crossed our southern border in 6 months, to say we'll take 100,000 of Ukrainian refugees seems kind of low in the big picture of things. You think it would be higher than that. The millions of them have gone to the adjoining states. I mean, they can't handle that. I mean,
so basically what happens is you'll have these, the federal government has resettlement areas. Now I know Massachusetts, I think it's for, there are certain, I think it's Ghanaian or Liberian. They have an Accenture is one of the resettlement contractors here. So you have individuals who are coming here legally, they're going to there, and then Accenture helps them resettle.
Sure.
So I'm assuming that's the type of process you'll have with the Ukrainians, that the ones who have gone to Poland or some of the surrounding countries will become part of the resettlement wherever they get determined to go.
I'm thinking that over the next couple of years, we'll see an increase in Ukrainian nationals living in the United States. But the difference that we do have with Ukrainian people who are fleeing is most of them want to return, right? They're not fleeing to these countries to live and reset up. They're fleeing to survive, and they all want to get back to the country someday.
I think whether they want to get back or not is going to determine the outcome.
Well, yeah, naturally.
Yeah. So
naturally, that's going to be determined by it. But boy, they've done a heck of a better job than anyone thought they were going to do.
Yeah, they really have. I mean, I think really you have to praise their commitment. I shouldn't say commitment, their bravery for their fellow citizens and their families.
But they're coming back into Kyiv, and what they're finding is stomach rolling.
Well, it's not Kyiv. What's the one that they just walked it back into? I shouldn't say walked back into, that they just drove the Russians out.
Well, Kyiv was one of them, and then,
but there's another one that they just found the mass graves.
Yeah, the mass graves and people on the side of the roads with their hands and feet binded and shot. A van riddled with bullets that has children written in Russian on it. It's
sad.
It's horrible. And you look at this and we look back at World War II era and we go, how did the world let all that happen? And we're watching atrocities almost as bad here. Genocide taking place.
The only I shouldn't say the only thing different. One different thing is here when Germany went into Austria. There was no world reaction helping Austria with arms, which we are doing.
Unfortunately, folks, we're out of time. This wraps up this edition of Politically Speaking with State Senator Mike Moore. Join us the first Monday of every month as the Senator will join us in studio to answer your calls and let us know what's happening in Beacon Hill and what's happening with your tax dollars. Anyway, that will wrap it up, Senator. Have a great rest of your Monday.
You too.
We're supposed to have short sleeve weather coming, so
And I hope you finish the marathon.
Yes, I'm training. I'm looking forward to it. 2 weeks from today, folks.
Moscow is facing global revulsion and accusations of war crimes